we will see how they were true to their values with each one of us. Patience, modesty, friendliness in the Quaker sense, creativity, development of understanding, making the world a better place. Because of their modesty, they would find all the attention a bit embarrassing if they were here with us today. Because we are going to hear a lot about how amazing they were. And neither of them had much interest in building up stories about themselves. But if we all take these stories about them as inspiration, they might be content. If they were sitting over at that table holding hands and saw that we could learn from them, that we could allow that memory of Phyllis and Jerry that we each carry to help us be a little more patient, to be a little more friendly, to remind us to make a joke instead of being offended. If these stories, their examples to us, can benefit us, then they would patiently tolerate all of us gathering here today and remembering them in this way. And this is a beautiful event, and people put a lot of effort into this, so that was meant to be a joke. We will all learn new things about Phyllis and Jerry today. At last, we now have an opportunity to share these stories of our love and appreciation for them. Each of us feels their absence acutely, but we are all here as a testament to two lives well lived, very well lived. Our celebration today is not a denial of the grief that we feel from losing them. It is a knitting together of our worlds of memories of them. We all live in each other's memories, and honoring Phyllis and Jerry with our memories of them today is part of the healing we all need. I am incredibly fortunate to have been brought into this world by Phyllis and Jerry, and to have spent 60 years as their son.
Hi everyone, I'm Clara, and I'm Eric and Ramona's daughter, and Phyllis and Jerry's granddaughter. Phyllis and Jerry's values, well, first of all, I see them everywhere. And they also run through all of my memories with them because their actions align so closely with those values. My happiest memories, I'm gonna cry, I'm sorry. My happiest memories of growing up are with my grandma and my grandpa, who have remained to be my North Stars ever since. At Lakeview Ave, on our pianos, which stands for Parents' Night Out, they would make us meals of fish sticks, lima beans, and couscous, and then we would play games afterwards, like pick-up sticks, Candyland, reading from the old joke books that they stocked along their Bennett box shelves. Always another room for someone at the table. They would pull up a chair. A new bird, bug, or egg would be discovered by one of my brothers or one of my cousins, and Phyllis or Jerry would bring out the identification book for it, and they would put it on the counter with a little note saying what it was and where it was from. After us kids immersed ourselves in the mud at the goat pasture pond, an idea that could have very well been Phyllis or Jerry's, they gladly hosed us down. Jerry found a stool on the street and brought it back, and we fixed it up. One time they met me in Western Mass. They were there for a friend's funeral, and they met me at the town dump because I was doing an art project, and they willingly came and willingly participated in this weird documentary that I was making. My grandparents are just so cool. Always in their matching bright-colored tank tops, encouraging everyone to join in the fun and help out. "Why not everyone help?" Phyllis would exclaim. She threw the shot put pretty far, too. Sometimes we would eat by the river at the Cambridge Boat Club, picnicking under the weeping willow with the straw picnic box, watching the boats go by. Phyllis and Jerry telling us about the birds. Those are the happiest memories. "Go out into the world and play. Go out into the world, get out," Phyllis would say. There was never a sense of scarcity, never a sense that I had to do more. I was enough. Everyone was enough for Phyllis and Jerry. How funny to have grandparents who made me feel embarrassed for not doing enough adventuring. They would ask me, "What are you doing?" I would see their lives of gardening, farming, hiking, building, connecting, laughing come to flash whenever we spoke. And recently, after I graduated college this past spring, I've been trying to figure out what I want to do. And I decided that I wanted to study urban planning, and then kind of had a moment, kind of realized very soon after that, that's exactly what my grandparents did, and I was like, duh. So, just want to thank them, and thank you all for being here to remember them.
Hi everyone, I'm Max Ingersoll, another grandson. And when I look back on the lives of Phyllis and Jerry, I can do nothing but smile. Because they truly have lived, truly maybe the most full lives I've ever seen. They never stopped exploring, they never stopped looking for beauty in the world, even when obviously their physical bodies started to fail them. They still kept their spirits and their incredible love and appreciation for people and for just all the amazing things out in the world. I have a really fond memory that I've been going back and revisiting a lot recently, which is in high school for me. I lived at Brookside over there in the summers and would work on a farm during the day. And in the mornings, Phyllis, Jerry, and I, we would eat breakfast on a table overlooking the pond at dawn, and we would see the mist rolling over the pond, the sun starting to rise, and the great blue heron perhaps gliding in and fishing, or all sorts of other birds, and they'd always point them out to me. "Oh, look at that, that's a great blue heron, and I was like, wow, how do they know so much about all this? But a lot of the time we would just sit there in silence and eat, and just sharing space like that together was enough to really feel their love. And I remember just feeling kind of their appreciation and love for the world soaking into me just by spending time with them and being around them. And that is something that I think about a lot these days. And then in the evening, after was done farming hard, all dirty, coming back home, we would make dinner and sit out again, this time on the porch. And I would always ask them, tell me stories, what did you do? Tell me, where did you travel? Where did you go? And I remember learning how Grandma Phyllis, when she was 8 years old or something, went and lived in Mexico with a family that she had never met, and traveled all over the world, all these fascinating stories. But the stories were never about their accomplishments or kind of like promoting their own image to me or to boast. It was always about, they were always about like seeing beauty in the world and also about the people that they met. And I think that perspective and outlook really sits with me, and I try to carry that forward today. And I think when I think of like if I had to sum up at least one the biggest impact that they've had on me, I think for Jerry, the biggest impact that Jerry's had on me is he's really shown me how to find meaning and joy through action and through work. I remember he would always do the dishes after, and sometimes he would be there for hours just doing the dishes. And I would come and I'd be like, Jerry, like, why are you doing the dishes? Like, you've been at it for so long. And he would always smile and be like, this is like, he wouldn't say that much about it, but I could always tell that he loved, like, that was his way of showing love and connecting with other people and supporting other people. And also up until he was physically unable, he would always be fixing up their boat, always be fixing random things, and like always looking for a new project and just finding so much joy and meaning in that. And to me, I think that's one of the reasons why he was able to stay so youthful for so long, because he always was looking for things instead of being like, oh, I have to work hard, like, you know, like when is it over? Instead, finding the joy in that moment and in the task at hand, and that's really beautiful, and I appreciate him a lot for that. And then Phyllis, the thing that I take most away from myself is her inclusivity, her inclusiveness, and also just her curiosity about people. So she would always see something beautiful in everyone, and would love to invite people. They were like, whenever there was, like Claire was saying before, there was never not enough. There's always more room, and someone else could always come in, and she never like excluded people, at least that I saw, and she always tried.
Have Phyllis and Jerry as my parents-in-law, the best parents-in-law one could ever hope for, and I think this was a demonstration of what I'm most grateful for is the values that they have given to my children, and just living with them in the same house for the last 30 years, or slightly less, but has been an incredible experience, and they've taught me so much as well. Thank you all for being here.
I'm glad you had tears in your eyes. Where'd she go? So I won't do it too much. I'm Margot Shaw, and it might be appropriate that I'm after the family because, well, I'll read it. You'll know why. I have so little time here to give you even a glimpse of P&J's connections with me over almost a lifetime. So I'll tell it as a chronology. Imagine a big time in the back of us. This is also an interactive experience to keep you awake. So, if you've been in the same place, not necessarily with me, but with Phyllis and Jerry, you have to raise your hand, okay? Okay, 1937-ish. Phyllis, Jerry, oh, no, 1937-ish. Phyllis remembered we were both 5-year-olds at the Hickory Ridge School, nursery school. No hands? Well, my dad, Hal Sproul, was for 2 years the director of music at Putney School. And that was the time at Putney when no one could stay there more than 2 years. Carmelita loved children, but she didn't know how to handle faculty. So my dad left after 2 years. 1947 to 50. Phyllis, Jerry, and I were students at Putney. I gotta keep my place, sorry. Phyllis was a day student, right? Let me see if they, yeah. She had a few of us walk to her house on a Sunday to sing together. That's the first way I met her, was through music. And that was my first real encounter with her. Heavy blonde braids, very Trap family looking. Jerry helped me make a twisted silver ring, I think you call it a friendship ring, in an evening activities class. Wow, he knows a lot. What a teacher. And he was just 1 year ahead, I think. Yeah. 50 to 54, Radcliffe College with Jerry at Harvard. And Phyllis, Radcliffe. Phyllis and I sang together in the Radcliffe Choral Society, Harvard Glee Club, trips with the Boston Symphony, absolutely the best. I'm hazy whether Phyllis was part of the small singing get-togethers at Klaus Goetz's house. It was a very special by invitation only. Anybody, any hands? Oh, 57 to 8-ish. Berkeley, California with Jerry studying architecture, Phyllis city planning.
I'm going to put up for my husband who's not.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I keep losing my place. Weekly music at people's apartments. Trip to an architecture conference on Coronado Island. Me posing as a student, hearing fast-talking Buckminster Fuller promote the geodesic dome. It wasn't really off the ground yet. Literally wasn't off the ground yet. We brought an abandoned kitten home, a saucer of milk on the microbus floor. Over the years, I rode many times in that microbus in many adventures. So here's one experience. I'm in Berkeley, living in a cabin down near the water. I'd invited Phyllis and Jerry and others to my cottage for my birthday dinner. Instead, I would be back from a day sailing in the bay early to prepare. The sailboat lost its power. The wind died, and we were rescued from floating out of the bay by a boat full of beer party guys who towed us to the Berkeley dock rather than back to what, Sausalito? Yeah. I called my house. Phyllis said they'd found a charred piece of meat in the oven and no one was there. Jerry came down to get me. Surprise! People there, meat perfectly cooked, and fun for all. Anyway, ski weekends at Sugar Bowl, renting a cabin for up to 10 of us. Who's back there with the hands up? I'm sorry. Driving there in the microbus. Best time for maturing with friends. 61 to 71-ish, long break in nearness. Some letters now and then. 73-ish to October 2002, and I know that because I left Lexington and went out west to buy a house out there. Sings with the beer group. The beer group was the Sings that Phyllis calls them. Beer group. Okay. Inclusive visits. Here we go. I want to see all the hands. To Buzzards Bay, Cambridge, Nassau Island, Vinyl Haven, My hand's up for Jim Terry, who couldn't make it. Friendship, Maine, hand up with Mary Rubell, who couldn't make it. Colin and Holly Lane's home in Sudbury, their hands by proxy. Harvest Festivals at Putney. And this is a very short experience. Sleeping out on the cow hill above the barn at Putney, wondering what will visit us in the night, and it was so funny. We had 2 tents. Obviously, I was by myself in one. Pitch black in the cow pasture. Period. We never had a cow. October 2nd, 2002, my westward migration to Orcas Island gave the excuse for P&J and Al and Judy to visit me. First time I had a chance to host these wonderful people. Blackberry picking, hiking, kayaking, eating. 2002 to now, sporadic connections in the East when I came here. Many emails, but always the bond of love. I'm gonna cry. These memories and so many more will stay alive.
I'm Peggy Brace, and I knew Phyllis at Radcliffe. We both took many of the same courses together, and we were standing by the new lecture hall once chatting, which is across from Sanders Theater, and a fellow came by on a bicycle, and he roared around the corner and sort of drove up onto the sidewalk and missed a hydrant there. And I said, who on earth is that pedaling along with this new French bikes that you bend over and you bend over and you don't sit up straight like a Christian when you bike. And he said, oh, he's a friend, he's from Putney, and I know him quite well. And I said, well, I wouldn't have anything to do with that fellow if I were you. And lo and behold, there he is, married to him. I was a bridesmaid for her wedding, and we were good buddies. But I really didn't think this was going to work out at all.
My name's Charles Humpstone. I met Jerry early September afternoon. We were both sophomores at Putney. We were 15, and we had both volunteered to scrape the dirt off the ledges in which they were going to put dynamite to blow a hole to make the foundation for the new science building. We literally, he was the first friend I made at school, and what with one thing and another, we decided the following year to be roommates. And we were roommates for those last 2 years at Putney, and then having decided to be adventuresome and to go elsewhere for our roommates for the freshman year at college, we found that the assignments that were given us were not altogether satisfactory. And so we reunited as roommates for the last 3 years at college. So I have roomed with Jerry for 5 years, and I want to pick some holes in this theory that he was good at fixing things. In fact, I'll talk about Jerry's project. Jerry loved to build things. He was an architect, but before he was an architect, he was a fixer-upper. And he made stuff. He made a double-decker bed out of 1.5-inch iron tubing. It must have weighed a ton. And at first he couldn't move it, so he took it apart, cut it with a torch, fixed so it could be bolted together, carried it up 5 flights, and we had that as our double-decker bed in our dormitory at Harvard. Anyway, while we were roommates, he got the bright idea. He had all these supplies that he used for making models of his architectural proposals. And among the raw materials that he had were heavy cardboard plaster Paris, wire, and so forth. And so one afternoon when it was raining and there was nothing else to do, he thought it would be fun to make life masks of his roommates. And I wasn't the first, I was the second. The first one had his face covered with no, it wasn't, but it was Vaseline and cold cream. And he got a lot of it in his eyes. And he was perfectly miserable with all this stuff. And Jerry put the cowl around his head with the straws in his nose, poured the plaster in, lifted it off, came off like a dream. And there was this mold, which later Jerry would pour a positive life mask in. I was the next. By now the cardboard was a little damp and it wasn't as strong as it had been. So put the cardboard cowl around my face, lying on my back, straws in my nose. I had been meticulously careful not to put Vaseline in my eyes. Very careful not to get it in my eyes. Vaseline and cold cream. So it poured the plaster in. The cowl broke a little, so some of the plaster got back in my hair, and it was a little hard to get the thing off. So then it turned out that I had, in my meticulous care, not managed to get the Vaseline on the eyelashes and the eyebrows. Whereupon, Jerry got out his X-Acto knife. And mind you, he couldn't see because the plaster covered everything. So, without looking, he reached in and shaved my eyebrows, one hair at a time, and then had enough leeway, because I had the stretch of my eyelids, that he could come in and cut the eyelashes one lash at a time. It took him about 2 hours, and I emerged from this treatment absolutely hairless. My wife tells me that my eyelashes are still a little thin. The eyebrows are doing nicely. I have one other Jerry story to tell. At the end of our freshman year, we were looking for a dormitory, and you had an opportunity to compete to get into the various houses at Harvard. And the house that we particularly wanted to go into was Eliot House. I don't remember why we particularly wanted to go to Eliot House, but we did. We wanted to go to Eliot House. And so we decided to go to Eliot House. We were not at all confident that we would get in because I had less than mediocre marks, and Jerry had about the same. And so we were sitting outside the waiting room before going in for our interview with the housemaster, and agreed that, it was a 50-50 chance we weren't going to make it. We also had a third roommate who was a disaster. I picked him up as a freshman. He was a thief, among other things. But anyway, he wanted to pal with us because he thought we'd get into whatever house we wanted to get in. So we walked in the door opens, we are admitted to the presence, and there is John Finley, housemaster of Eliot House. And Finley looks down at the piece of paper and says, Ingersoll, not Fitch Ingersoll, son. Turned out they'd been roommates. So we walked in. That was the beginning of my Finley story. The end of my Finley story is 40 years later, after I've been Marine Corps, I've been through law school, I've had career in law, career of civil rights, one thing and another, and I'm running a company in downtown Boston. And walking down the street toward me comes John Finley. He then must have been nearly as old as I am now. And there were two men with him, and he was chatting with them busily. And he looked up and he saw me and said, Humpstone, how is Ingersoll? So I have been delighted from that day to this to be known as Jerry Ingersoll's friend.
I had 7 different speeches ready, and just one word of the 6th one would make you all cry. But let's see. I'm Carl. I'm son 2 of child's 4 or whatever, 4th children. I have been around here for a long time, and And when Phyllis and Jerry had some friends come from far away, they would say, "Carl, why don't you take them around for a tour?" And so I'd take them up to the garden, show them all the different things, and explain about organics and all that stuff. And then maybe for a boat ride, and show them different things, show them around the house, the attic and the basement, and all the interesting things, the time capsule and stuff like that. Basically, interesting or maybe magical kind of description of things. And 2 or 3 hours of my day, and I'd make them have a nice time. And then I'd take them to their car, and they would say,
Well, thanks, Carl. You have really nice parents. And you think I'm kidding, but I heard that around 50 times. So this is me sort of trying to go back at Phyllis with her one-page spreadsheet idea. See if I can figure out what is it about, like, how did they do it? So you've got the names Jerry and Phyllis, different, but what do they do together? They're both, they're both not called by their given names. Okay, so you're going to see a trend here. There's going to be differences coming together to make a different thing. So born in June and January, sounds different, but somehow they came together. The education was completely different. Harvard and Radcliffe, very different places. But they had Putney together. I have pages of this, so I'm going to just give you a few key points. She, as a job, Jerry's designing space, and Phyllis is planning time and money. So you have 3D plus 4D plus dollar signs and whatnot. For religion, Jerry's, I have down here, work is devotion, like a shaker. Work is devotion. And for Phyllis, Quaker, spirituality is in us all. And you put it together and you get this kind of zen of daily life is like, here we are devoting and loving and working, and it's all blended together. I thought that the key moment in their lives kind of stretched for a while through the 70s or something, with because Jerry could identify any piece of classical music at all, and Phyllis could identify any part of nature. So the wonderful thing in their lives for a long time was morning pro musica, with the bird songs would come on, and Phyllis would be like, and then it would be classical music, and Jerry would go. They started every day. You have a starter and a finisher making teamwork together. Jerry encouraging independence, and Phyllis bringing people together. Here's one for Eric to think about. The kind of power type. This is a category of parents, apparently. You have Jerry's the energy, and Phyllis is the stability, which is like an atom, the electron and the nucleus. I'm not quite sure what happens afterwards. For a, and then it's good to think about what kind of punctuation mark your parents are. So I thought for Jerry, a semicolon, which is a part of a list with more to come. So that's Jerry. And for Phyllis, it's ... hesitation with more to come. And for what they would like to be or would like to have been or whatever, depending on your religious beliefs. Next time around, Jerry would like to be a sailor on Darwin's Beagle voyaging around the world. And somehow he already knows all the names of the boat parts and stuff. And Phyllis would like to do exactly what she's been doing all along.
You have such great parents.
Good afternoon. This is a hard act to follow, so maybe I'll take my own way. I'm Al Hudson. This is my wife, Judy Hudson, part of the Al and Judy team. I first met Jerry and Phyllis over 75 years ago, when in the fall of 1946, we were students at Putney School. Phyllis and I were ninth graders, and Jerry was a year ahead. Until our recent deaths, and in spite of occasional spatial separations, Phyllis, Jerry, I, and later Judy developed a close and enduring friendship. Phyllis and I sort of met each other the first week of school in Music 9 class. Cornelia Hinkle was introducing us to madrigals. At one point, Phyllis picked up my glasses, tried them on, and suddenly found that she could see the world. Great clarity. So much for fooling around in a music class. From this incident came two life changers: a shared, clear view of the world and the love of singing, especially madrigals and motets. Fast forward, Berkeley. After their wedding in 1955, Phyllis and Jerry moved to Berkeley and took up residence in the top floor of a Maybach designed house. You architects will know what this is. On Sunday mornings, the Hudsons and Ingersolls frequently breakfasted together, followed by singing or playing chamber music. Given that the Maybach apartment was small and rather dark, Jerry designed and built a deck that became a suitable airy spot for our Sunday activities. No laissez majesté there. While in California, we took frequent jaunts around the Bay Area and to more distant locations, often traveling on a fabled bus. In 1958, the Ingersolls and Hudsons drove from Berkeley to attend Bob Hersey's, another Whitney touchstone, wedding in Santa Barbara. En route, we stopped at the Mission La Purisma in Lompoc, California, a Franciscan outpost established in 1787. At the time of our visit, the buildings were open but empty, so we allowed ourselves a private tour, Jerry leading the way, mentioning architectural splendors. When we walked into the chapel, we immediately sensed a pleasing, vibrant quality. We climbed into the choir loft and hummed a few notes. The acoustic response was magical. Considering this a God-given opportunity, for the better part of half an hour, we sang an assortment of rounds, madrigals, motets, and other pieces in four parts. A highlight of a lifetime. Some years later, we're truncating things here, after returning from their sojourn in England and Africa, Phyllis, Jerry, and children settled on Lakeview Avenue in Cambridge. The house was a beehive of activity. Besides various construction projects, there were frequent guests, some just passing through, some staying a week or two, and some, including our son, staying even longer. Among other projects, Jerry turned the basement into a lovely garden apartment for Phyllis's mother, Leslie. While the Ingersolls' domestic life was settling in Cambridge, Jerry was getting established as an architect. In 1971, with two children, we moved from Michigan to UMass Amherst, acquiring in our small house, I have the shapes. Here we go. Acquiring a small house in Pelham, we persuaded Jerry to design a roomy addition, and somehow he found the time and inclination to do the job. The extension included a 20 by 28 rough sawn paneled music room of a size flexible enough to accommodate a string quartet or a small symphony orchestra. I'm not kidding. The upper half of the west wall opened to a balcony, a large 2-ton plywood door. The carpenters said it'll never open. Jerry's fabulous creation has accommodated events from weddings and memorial services to huge musical Christmas parties, and was the site of one of Donald Watt's last birthday celebrations. The acoustics almost rivaled those of La Purísima Chapel.
So I am Jeff Hudson, the son of Al and Judy, and I'm the one who showed up in Cambridge in the fall of 1990 to stay in Phyllis and Jerry's barn for a couple of weeks. 5 years later, I finally moved out. But I think on the first afternoon that I arrived there, Phyllis said to me, "Can you sing tenor?" And I said I could probably fake that. And so I was I started singing with Phyllis and Jerry and their friends. And I remember over the course of years, and I have memories going back at least 25, maybe 30 years, of this particular piece by Josquin called Mille Regrets. I'm sorry. And I remember Sarah asked me to say something so we could be more cheerful. Good job with that. Every time we sang it, Phyllis would say, "This is the song that I want at my memorial service." And because of the times we live in, we need to wear masks while we sing. And after we sing this, you are going to sing too. This beautiful song, What a Wonderful World. And because of the times we live in, when you all join us in singing, you're going to need to wear your masks too. Nothing is quite as effective at spreading the COVID virus as singing. So the option is not singing, but please, when you join in, do wear your
now it's
There you go. Does anyone need a mask?
there is a very short introduction and then join you.
Hello. I didn't want to go too long, but there were one or two people that, does anyone want to say something? Because we're almost wrapping up, but I had offered, where are you, Patty?
I'm here.
Do you want to say real quick something? Yeah. And then I'll say, and then Kofi's going to go. And does anyone else feel a burning desire to talk in a mic or stand up? You don't have to. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. Wow.
Hello. I'm Patty Kevel-Vogel. Dearest Phyllis and Jerry, it feels so unnatural that we're all gathered here in this beautiful place without you. Yet your sparkling smiles and voices are so clear and present. It was only 4 years ago in July that you welcomed Peter, David, and me back to Marie's cottage to celebrate its 100th anniversary and in memory of my Bob. It was a very heartwarming reunion. You created a beautiful and generous occasion with a festive outdoor lunch and 3 generations of your wonderful family in attendance. We were so moved and elated to be here again. The cottage looked the same as when we left it, much to our joy. No surprise, Jerry, with your architectural sensibilities, to upgrade amenities while maintaining its essential rustic character, true to Marie's vision. Even some of my kids' toys and books were still on the shelves. Decades of vivid, happy memories came reeling back as we shared our treasure troves of photos and stories from over 50 summers as guests in the cottage. As you know well, your mom had invited the 5 of us plus Golden Retriever to spend the summer of 1952 after Dad, as probate lawyer, had settled your grandmom's estate. That first childhood summer of free roaming through meadows, up to the ponies, cattle, sheep, chickens, hayloft, farm buildings, along back roads to the flourishing cranberry bogs, by the edge of ponds, through more rolling fields, and over to the tennis court, led to one summer after another as the seeds of a lifelong friendship were planted. By the time you returned from Africa in 1972 with your 4 wonderful kids, I was a mom with my Tara and David, whose summers on the farm were made even brighter in the company of Eric, Carl, Sarah, and Kofi. The place was humming with renovations, daily spirited tennis, Olympic Games, and parties galore, with Ingersolls, Garlands, Dennises, Von Hennenbergs, Andereggs, and Kevels, and certainly Aunt Amy. Your mom taught me so much about the care of the land, her deep abiding love of this place and the natural environment, so evident in all she did to keep it going, along with her passion for her Welsh ponies. She even invited Tara, age 15, and Susie to help with the ponies at a horse show in Kent, Connecticut, where we watched sword dancers steal the show. Thanks to your warm welcome back, we are now regular summer visitors, and we're delighted to rekindle midsummer parties at the cottage with you and extended family. In addition, I'll dearly cherish my overnight visits at Brookside in November 2018 and January 2020 en route to the vineyard. We sat around the big kitchen table I'd known so well since I was 10. Such lovely, delicious, and lively evenings surrounded by you, Carl and Kofi's families. Never did I think you'd both be suddenly gone so soon after. A deeply felt empty space now, so hard to reconcile. But rest assured, you inspired and taught your children, nieces, nephews, and grandchildren well, leaving this extraordinary place and heritage in the finest of dedicated, capable hands, with the immense gift of your generous and indelible spirits everywhere. I'll carry you with me always with much love. Patty.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ted Watt, and I am Phyllis and Jerry's, one of Phyllis and Jerry's nephews. My dad was Donnie Watt. I'm the oldest son of Donald Watt Sr. and Leslie Watt. And the family asked me to do something that was inspired partly by Leslie and partly by Phyllis. I have been a naturalist for my whole working career, teaching people and kids, taking everyone outdoors on nature walks to look at stuff, look at birds and look at plants. And I wanted to take us all on a nature walk, but I decided that wasn't going to work. So I brought nature to you. And some people are passing out things like this. So I hope everyone can either get a piece of this or be close enough to look at one. And when you get it, I want you to look at it. Look as closely as you can and notice everything you can about it. The color, the shape, the size, what's on the edges, what's on the stem, what's on the tip. And let's see, does everyone have them yet?
You can wait, Ted. It's okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, hold on a second.
And I wanted to do this because Leslie, when I was 5 years old, Grandma Leslie took me by the hand outside the kitchen window up at the farmhouse in Putney. And I didn't know what she was going to do, but she took me by the hand and lifted me up to look in the forsythia bush right outside the window where she had been doing dishes. And there was a hummingbird nest in the forsythia bush right outside the window. And I remember as a kid, I thought, wow, that's cool. But I was a kid. But what made that memory stick in my mind is how cool she thought it was. And her emotional tone and her appreciation of that aspect of nature has stayed with me my whole life, and it's part of why I chose the career that I did. And the other piece of the puzzle is that when I was probably something like this, Phyllis gave me a ceramic toad, a sculpture of a toad, and I had that at Phyllis's 80th, and I have it in the car here. And I had it my whole life, you know? It's not, I don't have that many possessions for that long, so it's been very special to me. Partly because it's an ugly spotted toad, but it's a symbol. It's a symbol of nature, the beauties of nature, and it's been part of my inspiration for my career. So this piece that I hope everyone has by now, I would show people this on my nature walks, and we would try and figure out what does this tell us about relationship and community in nature. So just go ahead and call out things that you notice.
Green.
Green, good.
Jagged
Bugs eating, good.
There's a fungus or something.
Imperfection, good. Yeah, there's a story there.
There's some fungus or virus.
Good. Symmetry, good.
Veins.
Structure.
Veins, good. Structure. Got green.
Stem.
Soft. Stem. Okay, who said stem? Look at the stem. Look at the stem. There's a really cool piece to the stem. You're going to probably need a magnifier to see this. It's very small. Not every stem has them. But if you look at the top of the stem towards the blade of the leaf, where it starts to widen out into the flat part of the leaf, you should see something. A little spur, good. Raise your hand if you have a little spur on your leaf. Okay, great, great. You may not have that, not all leaves have it, but if you don't have that, you should see a little brown bump or a little red bump on the edge of the leaf. Okay, now the question is, what is that?
Belly button.
I had two really good answers, but they're not right.
There's a stem bump.
Is it a gland of some sort?
Ellen got it, yes. Ellen said, is it a gland of some sort? It is a gland of some sort. The tree is making these on purpose. And what kind of stuff do glands do with plants? Secrete, good.
Hormones?
Not a hormone. No, it's not that kind of secret. Pheromone is getting close. Why would a plant, what is,
They're flowers.
no, who said flower? Flowers do the same thing. They secrete this stuff. Not pollen, not a hormone. Nectar. These are nectar glands on a leaf. Why are they on a leaf? Do leaves make seeds? Are leaves flowers? No. So what are the nectar? They are nectar glands. What are the nectar glands doing for the plant? The plant wouldn't waste energy on making glands for nectar.
It's attracting something.
Was that you, Peggy?
Distracting the insect.
Attract bugs, yeah.
Or to misleading them so they don't.
Attracting toads?
No. Right pollination for flowers, but not in the leaves. So there's
Defense bugs?
Say it again?
Bugs that defend it against other bugs?
Exactly. Good, Max. Max got it. Bugs that defend plants against other bugs. So this is a nectar gland to attract a specific species of ant that lives where this, everyone knows this is a tree, right? Does anyone know what tree this is? Black cherry, good. Black cherry native species, grows all around the farm, up in Cambridge, all over Massachusetts and New England. So the glands on the leaf are attracting ants, and the ants drink the nectar, but the ants also eat, anyone know what ants might eat on a tree? Aphids is a good guess, but it's not aphids in this instance. Max, you got it, caterpillars. So the ant is a native species, the cherry is a native species, and this predator on the cherry leaves is also a native species, and everyone here knows what the insect is. Who said it? 10 caterpillar. All three of those species have co-evolved. The tree doesn't want to be eaten by 10 caterpillars. The 10 caterpillar wants to eat the leaves. So the tree came up with this mediation, this relationship way to protect itself. So as in the fall, the mama moth lays her eggs on the twigs of the cherry tree, and they stay there all winter in a kind of little plasticky container to protect them from the winter cold. In the spring, when the cherry buds start to open, the eggs hatch. The caterpillars eat their way out of the eggs. The caterpillars want those tender little leaves. As soon as the buds emerge, the caterpillars come out. They crawl out the twig and start munching on the leaves. Those little caterpillars are very vulnerable. So during the day, they create what we all know as the tent out of their webbing. They spend the day in there, and they crawl out along the stem at night to eat the buds. And as you can see, the nectar glands are right close to the twig, right where the caterpillars are going to be, and so the ants go to get the nectar, and then they eat the caterpillars. So I just want us to think about the relationships and the community that exists in nature. This is just one example of all the myriad of different relationships that are in nature all around us. Phyllis and Grandma Leslie helped me learn about that. And the total miracle about this is when the caterpillars get a certain size, they're too big for the ants to capture and eat anymore. So what does the tree do? Stop secreting nectar. It's no use to them anymore, so they stop doing it. So I want to thank Phyllis and Jerry for what they've given me in terms of nature appreciation, and they gave me my career.
As Ted said, my name is Ellen Tully, and I thought I was going to be talking about someone who had known Jerry and Phyllis 65 years, but that's small potatoes with all you guys have known him for 75. Anyway, the person who should be giving this talk is Gordon Tully, because he knew Jerry and Phyllis at the Berkeley School of Architecture. And Gordon died in March, and it's my opinion that I'm not at the mic. Okay, it's my opinion that he perhaps believed that a world without Jerry and Phyllis might not be a world that was worth living in. Most of Gordon's memories from his time at Berkeley are lost to me, but there are two tales that he told time and time again all through his life of experiences that were really important to him. And they are experiences that Jerry and Phyllis, am I not speaking in the microphone? What am I not doing? Just a little far, closer? So, is that better? It's echoing now, so I guess it's better. These are two experiences that Jerry and Phyllis provided him that stuck with him all his life. In June of 1958, Jerry and Phyllis organized a cross-country trip from California to New York. And it was with the magical bus. I don't know, do you remember the bus? I never saw the bus, but I'm told that the bus had a sunroof, and you could stand up in the bus put your head through the sunroof as you were driving. Could you do that now? No. And he organized it with Jerry and Phyllis, another married couple. I was hoping someone here was that married couple. Gordon, a male architecture student, and a French girl. And an indication of how they worked out with two unattached males and one attractive female. They worked it out so that there was no rivalry. There was a bus and a bug, and Gordon sometimes was in the bug with the French girl, and sometimes he was in the bus with everybody else. So, just an indication. They camped whenever they found themselves. And someone sent me a postcard that Gordon had written at that time, which says, we camped along Lake Tahoe in the sagebrush of the Nevada hills, in the city park in Utah, by Jackson Lake in the Grand Tetons. It rained then, but we were prepared. Camping with the Ingersolls is very easy. They know how. Can you see consistent Ingersoll themes? Travel, outdoors, competence, and international inclusion. The second experience involves sailing. I suppose there are many of you that know that Jerry loved to sail, and Phyllis also. Gordon, during the same summer, Gordon was invited to the farm on a weekend when Jerry's father had chartered I think it was a ketch. It might have been a yawl, but I think it was a ketch. And I remember that Gordon said it was 60 feet. You sailors can tell me whether that's unrealistic, but in any case, it was a big boat. A skipper came along with this charter, but they sailed across the bay and got to Hadley Harbor, and at that time, Jerry was at the helm. And Jerry took this, let us call it 60 foot, that's more dramatic, took this boat through the moored boats in Hadley Harbor all the way down to the end, tacking. You have to tack through all those moored boats, and when he got to the end, he made one last tack, and then you reach or run back. And Gordon said when they made that last tack, all the moored boats, whatever they were, broke out in a burst of applause. So those of you who have been to Hadley's Harbor will know it takes some skill to tack your way down to the end without bumping into anybody. I didn't know anything about the Ingersolls until they moved back to Cambridge in when? The 70s, early 70s?
71.
71. And they had what I remember as 4 tanned and tow-headed children with them, but Sarah says that she probably wasn't tow-headed and neither was Eric, but that's a minor detail. They wanted to rent a house in Cambridge, and they were coming back from Ghana, and they asked Gordon to find a house for them. So Gordon and I pledged our souls, swore on a stack of Bibles, the Ingersolls are the most reliable people you will ever meet. Have no fear, you can rent your house to them. Only to have them leave the house after 3 months and buy 120 Lakeview. After dealing with learning something more about real estate markets, that was you had to buy it then or you would never get another one. Though I was initially sort of taken aback, I've come to realize that that was an incredibly important decision because 120 turned out to be not only a place to raise their family, but a place to share with friends, with international students who became friends, with children of friends who needed a place to stay to get themselves together. In short, a place to share. They never seemed to have fewer than 2 extra people at the table. And Phyllis was willing to feed everybody who came. I think that's been said more times than this one. But no one has said that she did it on what was a limited budget. And my husband could never understand how Phyllis could feed 8 or 10 people on less money than it took me to feed 4. And truthfully, I never understood either. We lived next to the Ingersolls at 112 for 15 years. Our children's memories of those days are comfortable friends, children to play with, and grown-ups to like. I will share with you one last Tully Ingersoll story, which is illustrative of Jerry's gentle, self-deprecating approach to life. Jerry had been put in charge of our son David. I don't know why. Probably I was doing something else and there was nobody to take care of David. And he was 2.5 or 3, and at that age he was not easy to understand. Jerry, to entertain David, asked him, "What would you like me to draw?" And David said, "Whatever," and that vocabulary passed for the word truck. And Jerry said, "I'm sorry, I must be very stupid, but I can't understand what you're saying." And I suspect there were many iterations of that exchange, because when Gordon picked up David, he said, "So, David, how'd you like your time with Jerry?" And David said, "He stupid, but he nice." I miss Jerry and Phyllis. I miss their warmth and their friendship and their acceptance. I miss that whenever we came to visit, they were glad to see us and we didn't have to be anything but ourselves.
So everybody, so many of you had reached out to us during this, what was a very challenging year last year, and the words that you sent and shared meant so much to all of us. So your friendship and love and camaraderie and has just been incredible. So I just want to thank you for that. I had a little something to read, but there was something else I wanted to say too that very quickly, which is about my parents' hands. My mom her hands were always quite veiny, even when she was younger. And she got a little bit of a flutter, and it would lead, like this is when she's older, it would lead the way a little bit. And it would go towards people, and be like, "Hello," right there, and like a butterfly leading the way. And my dad's hands were really thick. They were really thick. And you would think, and he got so mad trying to deal with the phone, just like, what is it? But you would think that he would not be very skilled, but of course, we all know now he could cut someone's eyelashes. So I think of their hands so much, and I wanted to mention them. So I found in the basement a box of my mom's journals from about 4th or 5th grade, all the way through Radcliffe, with tremendous detail about many of you guys. And I wanted to just read right as she met my dad. And it's interesting. So my mom, sorry, I'm going to go on long, but my mom, I always felt like she was kind of making me feel like it was very dramatic, and she was all like stable and, calm and everything. And then you read these journals and you're like, You were a dramatic college girl and high school girl. This is terrible and this is wonderful. Isn't this person great? And what a lovely day. And I'm not so sure about him. So it's been interesting reading these. So you have a little bit of a different perspective than the typical mom. She's a college girl. So it's fall in Cambridge. What a pleasant afternoon, a tiny bit of cool, feeling well, seeing many people, nothing pressing, the weight of plans off my shoulders and a pleasant longing for something in particular, as yet unspecified. I saw Jerry Ingersoll today. He's a beautiful person. We looked quite long at each other. I out of approval and searching, he I can't say. And then a couple days later, I'm very tempted by Jerry. He's such an interesting person, so beautiful and opinionated, and then so sensitive he sees things too. A sweet guy, and he has 2 Leicas with super lenses. Jerry called to ask me out for dinner tonight. That certainly makes me happy. He wants to take me to the symphony. And November 12th. Wow, my cheeks are pink. I'm strangely, deeply happy and content. Jerry certainly is attractive in all ways. The symphony was exciting. The 8th row, a real thrill. My mind is rather obsessed by him in his various forms. And then she said, it was lovely how we met. Such a nice smile, and it was for a moment the whole world. I mean, she really wrote this. It's crazy. I'm like, it was for a moment the whole world. Mrs. Wasserman was there, and I talked like a crazy one, on and on about my parents and Donnie and all sorts of irrelevant things, and Jerry was right beside me. This is when they reconnected. I was nearly shaking, and I really didn't know what I was saying. And Jerry asked if I could come with them for lunch, but there were too many of them. But I didn't care, of course, because I was so happy for that smile. It seemed we said a million things. So November 17th, we had lunch at Henry IV. I love to look at his blue eyes. It's true. I'm a little bewildered, though. I don't see what he sees in me. I feel too big and clumsy beside him, in mind and also in body. Perhaps I can loosen him up. Today we went to Dart, which I think is some sort of singing group. Jerry loved it. He and I walked there along the river, he pushing his red bicycle by the seat, I in my new shoes. It was a lovely, brisk day. I found myself just watching him, just unconsciously watching every move he makes. I've grown quite happy. Jerry, and then November 23rd, Jerry is laying a series of traps, delightful traps I'm falling happily into, happily. He takes life all or nothing, impatient and demanding, too serious and very handsome, and quite flattering and lots of fun to talk with and be with. I think his mind is so strangely neat. I love the way he worked on that paper. My God, what a very different head than mine. I did want desperately to say something about him to Mom and Pop. I said that it was fun to do things together, that I'd done things with other people before, but I'd always been rather still alone. And so the last note that goes on, I could read so much, but that last note, she said, I'm sleepy, relaxed, and so very happy. We seem to grow delight and strengthen each other's confidence every day. Sometimes I want to dance. I am a new person and every day more gentle. So then, my mom, when she died, was like, the rug just came out. We were shocked. And I was in Washington, D.C., and my daughter and I threw the clean laundry that was on the floor in the suitcase and the cat. And we drove up here, and Kofi had to call my dad in the hospital and say, your wife died, and he's thin and stressed and fever, and they couldn't visit each other. It was pretty horrible. And then he came out of the hospital and was very, very weak, and it was COVID, and so we couldn't really have a memorial, but we ended up having something, just immediate family, on some little blankets just to talk. And I said, Dad, what do you want to say? And he's like, I can't say anything. He was so vulnerable and yet so stoic. And I said, why don't you just talk, and I'll write some stuff down for you, and then you can do it. So this is kind of what he said. This leaves us startled and inadequate because there are so many strings that attach us and all the things that have not been said. But I feel confident that we very clearly expressed our love for one another, our dependence on one another, and we coped with whatever came up together, very collaborative, never a doubt. I've often said at other people's marriages that marriages are not only found, they are made over time with acceptance of one another's limitations and that of others. It's a thoughtful time, and I appreciate that everyone is there to help me get through it with the same joy, with recognition of one another, by example, not with heavy-handedness. The value of taking in the world as a source of infinite delight and wonder is enormous. Life itself is a miracle which so many people have yet to experience in the world today without fear or dread. I'm going to say that again, because we just have to live, people. We just have to. Life itself is a miracle which so many people have yet to experience in the world today without fear or dread. So let's live for them. He ended with saying we had a wonderful life together. So that's what I had to say. And I didn't cry. Wow.
Thank you all for coming. I'm Kofi. I'm Phyllis and Jerry's youngest child. And as you heard, my parents were great people. They were amazing, unbelievable parents and wonderful grandparents. They were not verbose. They did not reiterate. They did not go on incessantly. They spoke concisely and precisely, though they almost always did it nicely. So, in order to honor their brevity, let's commence with some levity.